75-gallon planted aquarium here in the basement is also doing very well. It's time for a water change, and I want to take the opportunity to add some more plants to this aquarium. Before we get started on making changes in this aquarium, let's take a look and see how things are doing. All the plants that we put in there originally are still there, with a few gaps in between the Alternanthera in the middle. Most of the Alternanthera is doing very well. That's that green bushy plant right there in the middle. Along the back of the aquarium is the Ludwigia araguaea. Now that is not growing as tall as I'd hoped it would, but I'm not going to give up on it yet. I kind of like that bushy look, and I suspect that if I get a slight change in the light color or a slight change in other aspects of nutrition or carbon dioxide, those might really take off. What has really taken off is the hydrocotyl, as we knew it would. So I've actually been trimming that a little bit, and I have been training it the way Tropica said it can be trained to stay low. While the tank is emptying, I'm going to go ahead and start taking out some plants. I've decided that I'm going to take this Ludwigia araguaea over here from this side of the aquarium and move it back over to the other side of the aquarium. I'm going to put another plant in here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these up. And they're not rooted very deeply. There's a stem plant. So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to pull them all out. And I'll net them out of there and just move them to the other side of the tank. They're coming up pretty easily. You see a nice root system on them though. All the Ludwigia is out on the left hand side of the tank, so I'm going to go in next. I'm going to pull up some of this hydrocotyl over here from the right side. This stuff grows so quickly and is so densely. I'm just going to go ahead and get this hydrocotyl out of the tank on this side and replace it with that Ludwigia that we took up from the other side of the tank. Before I add any new plants in here though, I need to go in here and give this hydrocotyl a pretty good trim. And it's going to look pretty brutal as I do this. But this stuff grows so fast. And all these trimmings are just going to float right up to the top of the tank. Now I'll just take a net and get all this hydrocotyl clippings out of the tank. So there's something you can do with this hydrocotyl you cut out of your aquarium that I think is really cool. If you take it, press it into a ball, and then put it into an aquarium and let it float as a mat. Just dump it in there. It's going to spread out on top of the tank, and then over the next few days, those leaves will turn up, the roots will turn down, and it makes this floating mat of hydrocotyl. Really neat. These larger rose swords are going to go back here in the back of the tank, in this corner. Now I'm going to put the sand up around their roots, but I'm not going to bury the crown. I'm actually going to put 4 swords in this tank, and they may end up taking up too much space. And if that happens, I'll take them out. The rosette swords are going to go here in the middle of the tank, in that gap that was left by the Alternanthera that didn't make it. And I hope they get nice and bushy and really take up some space. And last but not least, in goes this Aponogeton longipumulosus. I'm actually going to put it out here in the middle of this open space because it's going to fill that space up quite well. And hopefully the Ludwigia is going to grow up around the base of it, and also this hydrocotyl is going to grow back up against it as well. And I may actually go back and put a little bit of hydrocotyl here. I don't mind if this plant grows up out of a big mass of hydrocotyl. That might look pretty cool. One thing I want to show you before we fill the tank back up with water is how I am training this hydrocotyl to lay flat. What the Tropica website says is to press down on the hydrocotyl so that it's flat against the sand for a few seconds. and that will train the hydrocotyle to stay flatter. So I've discovered that it's easier to do this, and it's probably more effective by using a piece of glass. And I really put some pressure on it. And I very carefully lift it up. And the hydrocotyle will bounce back a little bit. Then I move it over to another section of hydrocotyle. And I keep doing that until I have pressed all the hydrocotyle at least once. All that's left to do now is give the tank a good scrub and fill it back up with water. This tank hasn't had nearly the algae problems the one upstairs does, and the glass stays pretty clean. Here's the 75-gallon aquarium downstairs, 24 hours after adding the plants and giving it a good water change. Here are the rosette swords spread out across the middle of the tank. And as I mentioned before, when they start putting on their underwater growth, they're actually going to be shorter. They're not going to be this tall. And then you can see the Ludwigia behind them. I'm still hoping that the Ludwigia will end up growing up above those rosette swords. In the front of the rosette swords is the Alternanthera, which I think is growing very well. And in the back corner are those rose swords, which will have kind of a pinky green color. And again, they will not be as tall or as spindly as they look now. Eventually they're going to fill out quite a bit more. And then over here on the far side of the tank is an Aponogeton longipumulosus. It will start to grow and fill up that corner of the tank and hide the diffuser and the intake tube. Here is the 75-gallon aquarium downstairs. About 2 weeks after planting it with the new plants, things are starting to grow a little bit. I want to point something out on these rose swords on this side of the tank. You'll notice the large green leaves. Those leaves are the leaves that the plants came in with from the ponds in Florida. And you'll notice they're turning brown and actually dying. That's not uncommon for the emergent growth on a sword plant to die. But these leaves down here in the bottom, those green leaves, a little darker red to them, that are coming out of the bottom of the plant, those are the new growth. So over the next few weeks I'll watch that. Once those new leaves get to be a pretty good size, I'll cut out all of the old growth. You can see the same kind of thing happening with the rosette sword, except the old leaves are going to be slower to die. They're starting to yellow on the edges a little bit, but the new growth are those really wrinkled bright green leaves growing out of the middle. One of my plans for this tank was to reduce the amount of light intensity and hope to get these stem plants to grow taller. I've noticed that the Ludwigia in the back is starting to spread out a little more, fill up more space, and get a little more height to it. The Alternanthera is also looking very good. It is starting to grow a little more height as well and fill in. That's it for the 2-month update of the downstairs 75-gallon aquarium. We'll come back and take a look again in a few months to see how it's growing in. Thank you for watching Ted's Fish Room. If you like this kind of programming, please subscribe to my channel and spread the word by sharing this video with your friends. Here are some other videos from my channel that you might be interested in. Also check out my tedsfishroom.com Facebook page where I do some programming that does not appear in my YouTube channel.